Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 281. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have a dynamic and outstanding show in store for you. First and foremost, if you want to watch me do the show live with the interview, please go to YouTube, and it's episode 281 with the YouTube cover. Now, today we're going to be talking to Mr. Eric Coffie. He's the founder of Govt Giants. And he has an amazing entrepreneurial story where he almost lost it all 2 times, but he used government contracts to come back, and his business has done over $5 million in government contracts. So if you've ever were interested or thought about trying to work with the government, make sure you tune into today's episode via on all the podcast platforms, or you can watch the video on YouTube. Now, before we get to today's episode, I just want to share a few things with the BEB family. First and foremost, if this is your first time listening to Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, welcome to the BEB family. Now, please stick around until the end of today's episode, and I'm going to share all of my social media information and also a resource guide, which includes my new book, A New Black Wall Street, and also the different e-commerce platforms I've created to help circulate the dollars in the Black community. So let's get ready to listen to my interview with Mr. Eric Coffie, founder of GovconGiants.com. We are live with Mr. Eric Coffie, the owner of GovconGiants.com. Eric, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing well, Jay. Thank you for having me today on your show. I know we've been working a while trying to get together and hook up, but, pleasure. Happy to be here. Excited. I want to rock and roll and share some information for the people out there in your community.
That's what's up. I appreciate you sharing your time, man. One of the things that I always get on the show, I get requests for, is government contracting. So when we connected several months ago, I said, man, this is going to be perfect for the BEB family because so many people reach out to me and I'm not proficient in government contracting. And obviously, this is what we do at the BEB family. We bring people on, experts, to help us elevate our entrepreneur IQ. And I know you're going to do that today, man. So for the listeners who aren't familiar with Eric Coffie, tell us a little bit about yourself personally, and then we'll get into your entrepreneurial journey.
Okay. Well, personally, in terms of, I started back in 2007, 2008. I was a realtor. And then as a realtor, I wasn't really satisfied or happy with what I was doing. Someone came to me, an older gentleman, seasoned, owned a bunch of properties, and he talked to me about becoming a developer. And so I said, okay, I listened to him and I respect him because I know he had substantial wealth and he had accumulated over the years. And so I looked up to him and I went out and he said, listen, if you get your contractor's license, and I'll put the money up and then we could start building houses for like community development programs. And so I said, okay, I went out, studied, got my GC license, and then the market fell from under us. That's when the real estate market crashed, the banks were closing. And so obviously, you remember that time? Yeah. So
yeah,
there was no
mortgage business went down.
Yeah. There you go. And so, as you know, there was nobody building any homes anywhere around the country. There was no development going on, anything like that. So I was stuck with having passed my general contractor's exam, state of Florida, and really nowhere to hang that and do anything with it. Fortunately for me, I had a couple properties and I was introduced, my air conditioning guy actually introduced me to another gentleman who was looking into the government contracting space. We hooked up, met, and he talked to me about the world of federal government contracts. And then, I took off from there.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny how we get positioned for certain things. So you weren't even thinking about government contracting. You were in the real estate business. So sometimes, things are providence happens and make us move into a certain area that obviously you're blessed to be in now because you've been so successful. Right. So we want to kind of dive into that real quick. So how did you get started in government contracting after everything had gone down with the economy? And what was your first foray into that? So if you can just share that with us.
All right. So our first foray, the gentleman that I met, the older gentleman, which, by the way, and we'll talk about this, Jay, later on, he was actually just on C-SPAN 2 weeks ago with the President of the United States, Donald Trump, and talking about the new opportunity zones. He has since built his business up to about $50 million a year. So
Wow.
that gentleman, so him and I, we got together, and we essentially he knew about the opportunities, but he didn't know how to maximize them or take advantage of it. And so when we got together, he said, "Look, this is billions of dollars and billions of dollars." And I had personally never heard of billions of dollars of anything, right? Of opportunities. Right. I mean, look, I'm an engineer. You know, you come out of school, you're making $60,000 a year. You get up to, executive, you're making $130,000 a year. So that's about as high as I thought you could take it. But then he talked about all these billions of dollars. And what he did was he challenged me to go out and say, look, if you can figure out a way to wrap your hands around some of these opportunities, you could bring it back to my organization and we will fulfill them, right? Mm-hmm. And so I didn't realize I was doing business development. Right. I had no idea what you call it. He just, I didn't know. Now we also call it consulting. But he said, look, if you can figure out how to wrap your hands around some of this opportunity and bring it back down, we have the back office staff, we have the people, the team to be able to execute and perform the work. Mm-hmm. So again, mind you, nothing else was going on, right? There's nothing else happening. The market was dead. Banks were dead, Mm-hmm. And so I just started going to conferences and events and learning everything I could, getting my hands on everything about government contracts. And I would just stay up at night studying how it works. And then I start reaching out and talking to people and asking them. Right. And we were fortunate because we had this little known certification at the time called 8A. So the number 8, the letter A is an apple. And 8A certification is a federal certification. It's a socioeconomic program that allows the government to give you set-aside contracts and negotiated contracts. Mm-hmm. And so he had that certification. So when I started talking to government agencies and I mentioned that, hey, we're a good company, and by the way, we have this 8A certification thing, they said, mm-hmm. Oh, you have 8A? And with that certification, they were able to negotiate contracts with us. Wow. And so we literally, just by talking to agencies, letting them know what our capabilities were, letting them know what we could do, they started giving us an opportunity and giving us a chance. And they gave us a bunch of small projects.
What type of projects?
So for us, we were so the company was an air conditioning company that I was working with. But we were doing construction projects. So we were doing small construction, like, for example, replacing carpet, replacing cabinetry, painting buildings inside, painting walls, like very small, minor stuff. Mm-hmm. And then as we started learning more about the industry and the business and start proving ourselves, they start giving us bigger and bigger projects. So that he happened to have 8A and his brother happened to have 8A. Okay. Unfortunately, we separated because his family was tied to the business, and so it was a conflict between the family and myself. And so I ended up working with his brother, who had his own painting company, and then we really just blew it out the water. I mean, we got to the point where we were now the incumbent at that military facility, Homestead Air Force Base, where it was at. So people were now targeting us and saying, hey, how come these guys have all the contracts out here? And so we went from nobody to basically the contract leader out there on the base.
Cool. Now, let me just ask you real quick, because I know some of the BEB family members may be thinking about this. So when you have your contracts, do you outsource the actual work, and do you work or as a GC, a general contractor, to manage the project, or did you have people in-house that did all of the work?
No, we essentially what we did was the project administration. Okay. And that's a very good point that you bring up. And this is great for the BB family or everyone listening. One of the things that people toss around is the word middleman or broker. Mm-hmm. And I hate to use that word because it has a negative connotation to it. We outsource all of the work to experts and professionals to do it. However, the value that we delivered to the government was we managed the actual administrative side and the project side. Because when you're working for a government agency, right, these people are doing what they call mission critical tasks. So the things that the government does, even though we're looking at just from the monetary standpoint, they're really highly important to protecting the efforts of the United States, warding off threats. You know what I'm saying? Like we may see it as just putting in flooring, but the flooring is for the office, the medical office that services the troops.
Right.
So if you think that far out, you realize that this is really an important function of helping protect our military, helping protect the United States and secure them. So one of the things that they're really big on, and where small businesses fail, Jay, is on the administration.
Right.
You can do a perfect job on your work, and if you do a bad job on administration, you're not going to get called back.
Right.
So that management side is so critical. And I've seen so many people say, well, Eric, we kick butt. Like, man, we're the best painters, or we're the best janitorial service, or we're the best. But if your paperwork is subpar and your reporting is inferior and your responsiveness is low, you won't get called. You won't be invited back. Right. So what we did was we brought in the best people, experts, to come in and do the actual work. But guess what? Just like everybody else, they didn't know how to do a government contract in terms of the paperwork. So we took care of all the paperwork part, and that's why it was a successful venture. And so that's how we continued to grow and build the businesses.
Okay. Now, I know there comes a point in the story where you break off on your own. So how did that happen? It sounds like you guys were doing well with the brother of your initial partner.
Right.
And so what made you decide to break out on your own? Was there an instance?
No, what happened was, we were making money. The guy, the guy had made over $1 million profit in 3 years, and we were killing it. But it came a point for me where, he didn't want to go after bigger and bigger contracts, and he didn't want to grow the business. He was happy at the level where he was at. He's like, look, Eric, we're making great money. Let's just stay where we're at. And for me, it wasn't even the money. I just got bored. I wanted more. I wanted to challenge myself and see how far can we take this. Forget about the money side. How far can we go? If we have the ability to do double or triple the revenues, why not?
Why not?
Why not? Why remain stagnant and only pursue projects within our comfort zone? And that's kind of where we differ. And he just wanted to pursue projects within his comfort zone. And his motto at the time was, Eric, $5 million project, $5 million headache. $10 million project, $10 million headache. That was so, as that was his train of thought. And so for me, I said, well, I don't know. Maybe that's not the correlation, right? Maybe that doesn't necessarily, that's an assumption or he's making because he's afraid. That's out of fear. He's talking out of fear, which most of us do, is that we say, for example, some of your listeners will say, well, I can't do government contracts, but they're speaking out of fear.
Right.
Because these people, and one of the quotes that I use in my book is, my friends that went to college are not millionaires, and my millionaire friends never went to college.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's not about education. It has nothing to do with education. It has nothing to do with not even experience, because no one had experience. None of us had experience.
Right.
So it had nothing to do with education and nothing to do with experience, because no one knew anything about government. Like, all of us were brand new and getting started. None of us knew anything about this stuff at the time. None of us had any contracts. And so again, we had done construction, right? But we didn't have government contracts, and so we learned it as we learned it as we went. But we knew that we respected the government. I took pride in my work. I delivered excellence. I was always responsive. And so those were the things that really helped develop us out. So to answer your question, when I saw that, I said, look, I've got to move on, and I have to see what all I could be, right? I just wanted to see what all I could do. And so what we did was we won a project to renovate some airplane hangars.
Okay.
And it was about $2 million, $2.3 million, $2.4 million. And about 30, maybe a few months before that, when I was looking to go out on my own, I said I wanted to get into a niche, right? A niche market. And again, for some reason, whenever I put my mind to it, it's like the people come into my life, into my world, that help support what it is I want to do, my efforts. And so when I said that, I met another older gentleman who said to me, he said, look, I've done steel buildings, metal buildings, and he had been doing it for 30 years. And he said, hey, if you're looking for a specialty area in construction, this is a specialty area where he's basically raised his family, taken care of himself, and had a nice life in that particular industry. But he was older now, and he was tired. So he talked to me about it. It just so happens that a contract came out for building a steel building, which was the hangars. He got me certified with one of the largest manufacturers in the country.
Oh, cool.
He got me supplier credit with the large manufacturer in the country off of his name and his relationships. And so when we bid that project, we were able to be the low bid because I was a direct supplier of the manufacturer who provided the products. So we won that job. We beat out the incumbent whose design the government used for the project. So we beat them out, which they were mad because they actually protested the job because they were so pissed off that we beat them. Because it was their hangar design that was the one that you had to match.
Right.
So we beat them on price of their own design.
Get out of here.
Yeah. It was awesome. We went through, they protested. We won it because we didn't have any specialized, we didn't have any secrets or nobody helped us out.
Right.
We just beat them, flat out beat them. And so that was the first time where I said, okay, I told my partner at the time, I said, look, I'm going to go ahead and do this with my own resources, my own people.
Right.
And so I picked up a company that was doing steel buildings. I basically put all their guys on my payroll. And because I had this contract, my portion was like 1.5 million.
Okay.
To provide the building and the labor and equipment. And so I basically parlayed that contract into building myself a company and a team. And I brought on at different times, it started off with like 5 guys, but then it worked up to 15 guys.
15.
Yeah. But again, the contract supported me paying everybody and everything like that. So
I have a question for you. So the partner, the brother that you were working with before you started doing this, were you 50-50 partners? Because he was saying that, we're making a lot of money, and he was comfortable. Were you 50-50 split?
So initially we started out 25-75.
Okay.
Right. And so that's when we made some really hefty profit numbers. But then I told him, I said, look, I'm doing all the work. Right. You're just out in the field and like, listen, I need more. So we end up becoming 50-50 of the profit. But then, still, he didn't want to hire a team.
Right.
And this happened. And listen, everybody listening, this happens to, for some reason in our community, we decide like we want to keep all the money, but you got to grow your business. You got to reinvest your money back into your business, back into your team. And I was like, look, the government will come. I'll be honest with Jay. We were doing about 2 to 3 million in sales.
Right.
The government in this particular program called us a failure.
Wow. Because you weren't doing enough.
Because you were not doing enough. They're saying you should be doing 10 million.
Wow.
And the government, the government saying this is a business development program.
Right.
It's designed, if we're giving you sole source contracts, negotiated contracts, we're giving them to you to build your business, to build your team. You're supposed to be taking advantage of economies of scale. Hey, you make $100,000 on this job, you're supposed to bring in an engineer, bring in a project manager, bring in a project superintendent. That's the idea of the program. So that, because what's happening, Jay, that I think a lot of us don't know, is at the very top of all the contracts, there's only 1 or 2 people.
Really?
At the top.
Get out of here.
It's 45% of all contracts have one or less bidders.
Damn, really?
So, because at the very top, they're saying there's no one up here that could do these jobs.
Get out of here. So that's opportunity.
So with the government, so whoever designed this program, my theory is that they recognized that this would be a problem. And they said, let's try and build some companies up so they can compete at the top where we can really start saving the taxpayers dollars. Because, at the bottom level at 10, 20 million, you're not moving a needle. But if we could start providing competition to the bigger firms that are doing $100 million contracts and $200 million contracts, now we can save the taxpayer dollars from these companies that have been abusing the government for years and years and years.
Wow, that's crazy. So
that to me is the theory behind, or the concept behind these programs, is to ramp us up, scale us up so that we can start competing at a $50, $75, $100 million level.
Okay. And so Yeah, that's crazy, man.
I
So
know we're
when you
talking big numbers,
no, that's
but
great.
this
That's
is
great.
real. This is how the government works.
And people have to understand you got to expand your horizons to be able to deal in that ballpark. It makes
Right.
a whole lot of sense. When I came out of college and I was a financial advisor for Dean Witter and Merrill Lynch, and I'm talking to guys and young ladies that investors that have millions of dollars. And to me, back in the day, $30,000 was a lot of money. You know,
Right.
dealing
Sure.
with investors with multi-million-dollar portfolios and stuff like that. It kind of made me rethink what money is. And so, yeah, I get it. I definitely understand. It's the being able to understand that there's always levels that are higher than where we currently are, and if we don't try to get there, then we're basically shorting ourselves. Now, let me ask you this, Eric. When you started off and you're partnering with this gentleman right now, did you continue to stay partners with him, and are you partners with him now, or are you totally separate?
No, so I after that particular project, I walked away, and I
Okay.
said I'm
Why
going
did
to
you
go
do
off
that?
because like I said, he didn't want to scale, he didn't want to grow, and
Gotcha.
the government was coming to me saying, "Hey, Eric, look, you have something here," and
Hmm.
you know, and so I was like, okay, if I could put a team of people together, I already knew how to leverage the certifications.
Right.
One of the thing is, listen, Jay, I've never had a certification.
Oh, really?
I've never
Wow.
personally had these certifications, but all my contracts have come through those certifications.
Get out of here.
So I tell people, like, I already knew how to leverage those certifications to get contracts. So
Hmm.
for me, I felt as though I didn't need one.
Mm.
I'd already proven that I could successfully do millions of dollars in contracts without a certification.
Right.
So I said, okay, I'm going to go off on my own. And I took that crew from that project. And while we were doing that project, I was out, putting together a pipeline of other work. And so
Hmm.
we just started doing projects for other entities.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So even to this day, you don't have the certifications?
I've never had a certification. Never,
Okay.
never
So
once, never.
would that preclude you from any jobs though? Or is it
Yes,
prerequisite from
it's not
certain
a
jobs?
no, it's not a prerequisite, but it would
Okay.
preclude you from certain jobs where they're looking for it. Yes, but it's not a
Okay.
prerequisite to do business with the government. And
Okay.
that's a misnotion that people have sometimes, is that you have to have a socioeconomic category, whether it's women or minority or anything like that. That is untrue.
Okay.
The
Got
majority of contracts, the all of the small business contracts represent only 20% of the contracts.
it.
The
Okay.
other 80% are wide open.
Wow. Get out
So
of here.
we always seem to focus on the minority stuff, the small business stuff,
Hmm.
and we forget there's 80% of the meat
Other
potatoes out
stuff.
here. Yeah.
Right, right,
Like,
right,
it's
right.
like we hang our hats on I gotta get this certification, I gotta get this certification, I gotta get this.
Hmm.
That's 20, that's a sliver of the whole
Right.
pie, man.
Of
That's
the ball.
20%.
Yeah.
And then if you and Jay, be honest with you, it's even less than that, because out of the 23%,
Hmm.
probably 66% of the 23, there are major companies in here that are eating that up.
Really?
They are small businesses, but what happens is they fall under what they call tribal companies.
Okay.
So they're Alaskan natives, they're tribal, Native Americans,
Gotcha.
the
Right.
Indians. They're eating up, they're all considered small business,
Hmm.
but they're part of a large conglomerate of $100 million companies. They're a multi-billion-dollar organization that operates on the hospice of a small business firm.
Oh man. Wow.
So guess what? If you're
Game in the
only
system,
going,
huh?
if you're, yeah. So if you're
Hmm.
only going after that 23%,
It's competitive, I
it's
presume.
it's it's I mean, it's not the only path to take. I would
Gotcha.
say I would not limit myself or my ability to just focusing in on that.
Man. Now, I wanted to ask you in terms of financing your business.
Okay.
So, how did you finance your business when you stepped out on your own?
So that's a great question, man. Good. I'm happy you asked this, because this is an important point.
Okay.
One of the things, Jay, that I learned, now these guys, they taught me some good stuff. I ain't gonna lie. Look, hey man, these guys taught me well. One of the first things that we did was, and I'm gonna tell you this. Yeah, I don't have. I'm gonna see if I can find it. It's somewhere. I don't have it here.
Okay.
Um, I have never had a 700 credit score in my life.
Right.
Never. I'm just, even today, I don't have a 700 credit score. And I
Okay.
have apartments and buildings and all kind of stuff. I don't have a 700 credit score. I've never had a 700 credit score. So I'm just setting the stage to let people know it's not credit. People
Okay.
always think you gotta get a credit, you gotta get a bank line, the banks ain't never gave me the money. The
Wow.
banks never gave me a loan. What I did, Jay, and what I teach people is you get supplier credit,
Okay.
vendor
Gotcha.
credit. Okay. When I did my steel building project,
Mm-hmm.
my vendor gave me $1 million credit worth of steel.
Wow.
I don't need $1 million cash.
Right.
I got the $1 million worth of steel.
Mm-hmm.
Once you deliver to the government pays you back. You pay the creditor, and you're good.
Right.
So now supplier credit, most of the supplier credit, and I mean, when I say most, I'm talking about like 90% that I've ever done, filled out forms,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I want everyone to pay attention to this. This is really important. It doesn't matter if you don't have 2 years in business. It don't matter. You can
Okay.
start your business Monday. Most of the forms that I've ever seen for supplier credit ask for 3 references.
Okay.
Not your credit score.
Right.
Not that you've been in business minimum 2 years. They say 3 references of people that you've done business with.
Mm-hmm.
So what I learned, Jay, was most of us have done business with someone, right? Whether you believe it or not. If you bought an air conditioning for your house, you did business with the air conditioning company.
Mm-hmm.
If you put a roof on your house, you've done business with a roofer. If you get me? Most of us don't see that as having done a business transaction with someone.
Makes sense. Wow.
You get me? And so what my the partners that I had at the time taught me was that, Eric, if we've ever exchanged money for services, we did business with that entity. And so what we did was we put each other down as references.
Right.
And so I put down my friend's AC company as a reference.
Mm-hmm.
I put down my other friend's painting company as a reference.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had another friend who had an electrical company, and I put them all down as references. And we put down 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, or 10,000, 15, and 20,000. So now when I went to, let's say, Granger Supply,
Right.
Granger says, hey, you did 10 with this guy, 15 with this guy, 20, all accounts paid, 0 balance, paid on time. Then when they called them or emailed them, back then it was fax, they faxed them, they fill out the form, put it in, turn it in, boom, you're approved.
Man. Cool.
So we got credit from the suppliers. So guess what? If you are doing air conditioning company,
mm-hmm.
the supplier gives you credit. So now you can fulfill your order for the customer. The government pays you, you pay the supplier, and that's it. The reason why I believe that is different from actual personal credit or personal debt is because with supplier credit, they're not going to give you something unless you need it.
Right.
You can't go out and just buy roofs.
Right. Right.
You know what I'm saying? Without having a contract to buy, like to order it. You get me? So that's why, to me, it makes sense why it's easier, I guess, to get than actual like personal consumer debt, because you wouldn't order, like if I got credit with, say, a rental company, I'm not going to get rental equipment if I'm not putting in a project.
Exactly.
You're not going to get bolts or equipment or screws if you don't have anywhere to install the screws or the bolts. Does that make sense, Jay?
Yeah.
And so we always use supplier credit throughout our business.
Oh man, that's a great tip. So let the light bulb go off to the BEB family. Well, if you decide to get into the government contracting business, that's a great point. Also, let me ask you: is the strength of having a government contract, does that play into the decision making for the actual vendors too?
I would say yeah, definitely.
Okay.
I would say yes, but not. There's some notions floating around that if you get a government contract, that the bank will finance you. Banks don't finance us.
Okay.
Banks don't banks finance people with money.
Right. That's it. Yeah.
You know,
I always said that.
Banks listen, and
people that don't need the money.
The people that don't need the money. We had so I'll tell you. I'll share this since you asked about that. Mm-hmm. The first partner of mine had a bunch of real estate properties. We went out and got him like 400,000 line of credit, right, on his properties, because he had no debt. They were paid off, and they lent him 400,000, but they used his properties as collateral.
Right.
When the market crashed, they pulled all that back.
Yep. Yeah.
So how was that? Like the collateral was still there, but they just closed his lines of credit. They cut them off. And then my second partner that I had, he had an 800 credit score. He had hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank.
Hmm.
hundreds. You know
Wow.
what they told us?
What's that?
He was too liquid.
Too liquid. Damn.
So
Too liquid, huh?
you go, dude,
Wow.
who do they want to give money to?
Exactly.
If he had everything that they said, but then that's why they said, oh, three C's: credit, collateral, and cash. But then they said he was too liquid and he didn't have
Too.
enough collateral. So it's like you have a perfect trifecta to get these people to give you any real money. And so
Wow.
for me, I just found it was easier
Hmm.
to get money from the suppliers and just get finance the jobs based
With
on
that.
with your materials. You get materials financing, you put it on a job, and then you build a government. They pay you back, and then you've got money to work with.
So the government pays you in draws. Is it
They
based
paid us
on?
in draws, yes,
Okay. And how
yeah.
frequently are the draws? Do the draws come out? Do they
So
vary?
for us, for us, it's when you bill,
Hmm.
they would pay you within 15 days
Okay. Cool.
but
And
on construction.
how frequently would you bill?
Based on performance. We typically build 30-day cycles, but I
Okay.
mean, it's based on however you accomplish things, right? Because
Mhm.
um, on most projects, less than 30 days, you're not going to get much more accomplished, right? So you're going to get to a
Right.
certain point. Let's say we're in November 20th now, right? So we build to the 20th. You're not going to have enough accomplished by December 1st to
Right.
build another again, right?
Gotcha.
So typically we build on 30-day cycles, but they pay us in 15
15.
days or less.
Okay. That's cool. Now,
We've been
how do
paid in
you?
7 days before, Jay, by the way.
Oh, that's great, man.
So I just
Oh,
want to put that out because people keep saying, "Oh, the government pays slow. They take it for." That is again, most of the time, it's state and local governments, not federal.
not federal.
We're
Okay.
gonna. I just want to make that distinction. I focus on federal, not state and local.
Okay. All right. So I'm glad you made that differentiation. Now, how about paying the workers? Because I know a lot of the workers get paid weekly or bi-weekly or whatever.
Yeah.
So how did you take care of them if you were waiting on the draw from the government?
So for me personally, like I said, I had built up money, and this is an approach that I tell people: if you don't have any cash,
Hmm.
I started off as a consultant, as a BD person. So I was
Hmm.
eating what I killed. So I had saved up a couple $100,000 already before I
Okay.
started my business. So I had a
Cool.
couple $100,000 in the account, to be able to to basically float until I
Right.
got reimbursed for my monies.
Okay. Cool. Cool. All right. So just to let people know that you may need some cash up front, so you might
Oh
not
no, if
want.
you've got workers or staff, you're definitely
Yeah.
going to need some cash.
Okay.
But I will say this, Jay. The last project that I did on my own was a $5 million project, and I basically outsourced the whole job to a company,
Hmm.
and I was able to do it with no cash up
Oh
front out of my
wow.
pocket.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
What type of if you don't mind me asking, like when you do a job like that, what type of percentage do you normally take or make in terms of that
So
type of stuff?
I started out. I had put 15% in there, but I ended up at 12.
Okay,
So it
cool,
was like
cool.
600,000 profit.
That's a nice
And
payday, bro.
I went maybe 3 times to that job site.
Wow. And how long did the actual project take
Two
from
years.
start to 2
2
years?
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
that's good.
but as you can imagine, you're making like 30,000 a month profit for 2 years.
Exactly.
Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, sign me up. Right.
I mean, I wish I could find 10 of them.
Exactly. Man. So one thing I want the BEB family to understand, and Eric touched on it, and it's about being able to broaden your horizons when it comes to making money. So a lot of times when we think of small business, our mindset is at a level here when actually if we put the due diligence in and we're in the right industry, we can actually be at a different level, talking 5 million, 10 million, large contracts like that. What's the largest contract you ever worked on?
That one for 5 million was the largest single contract that I've ever worked on.
Single con. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. That's a nice piece. Uh,
But I will say this. That was so just for clarity's sake, the
mhm.
contract was 20 million. My portion was 5.
Okay,
Just
gotcha.
it was like 4.9 because some people might say, "Oh, I heard him say it before." It's like 4.9 million, whatever.
Okay.
But the contract itself, the job was
Mhm.
$20 million job.
So they had other firms that
Other
were
firms out
handling.
there were working as well, right?
Okay,
So it was a $20 million scope, but my piece was only 5,
okay.
4.9.
What would you say that your average contract or piece of contracts go for? What do you think? Million, two, three, or something like that? Or
No, we were doing. Listen, when I was working with these guys, when I was working with and with these guys doing federal, we were doing 100,000 to 500,000 contracts.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
And so now the stuff that I mean, same thing. Whenever you start from the beginning, even coming into the industry, like right now, I consult with a couple of companies. Both companies do over $20 million in revenue. Okay. I'm helping them get into the federal marketplace. However, when we go out and meet with the government agencies, they're like, hey, that's great that you do 20 million in the private sector. But if you've never done $1 in our sector, we want you to start off something small because it's different. The rules are different. The regulations are different. Our expectations are different. And so, there's going to be a lot more paperwork. It's going to be heavy with paperwork, which is why I say the administration is where small businesses fail. So again, we always have to start over, improve ourselves. Before the show, I showed you that negotiated contract that's going to be over 750,000.
Right.
But before we got that, we did with that agency. We're still doing it now. We went out and bid and won a $3 million contract with them. But we bid that and competed and bid it and proved ourselves. And so now that they've seen our performance and our work, now they're saying, okay, we trust that you guys, we can start negotiating other jobs with you at different numbers. But every time we approach a new agency, they always start us off small because we've never worked together, and they want to see how we work. And then also, and this is to me is important for people to understand, the government, believe it or not, they believe in a win-win-win for everybody scenario. And the federal government, federal.
Gotcha.
Jay, I personally hate state and local. Just so you know. I just want to say that to the BEB family. I don't like state and local contracts. Because they leave you out there floating with your money and they bankrupt you and stuff. The federal government, and when they tell you, say, Jay, look, okay, you want to do business with the Navy. All right. You never did business with the Navy. Jay, we want you to be successful. So we're not going to give you a complicated project to start with. We're not going to give you, you know what I'm saying? We're not going to have you building docks in the middle of the river, right, as your first project. We're going to let you paint inside of a building that's 500 square feet so you can have good past performance, and we can say, Jay, man, did an excellent job. And once you do that, then we will give you more and more challenging projects. But we want you to understand, because working with the government, all employees are not made alike. You might have some problems with one of the engineers. You may have a problem with the contracting specialist. Maybe they don't respond to you, Jay. So we want you to understand how our ecosystem works. And then once you get a hold of that and you know, okay, this guy's going to be a jerk, this guy's not going to be responsive, and you kind of figure through that on a small scale, then we'll start gradually moving you up. So we always start off small in every new agency that I work with. So
if you can clarify agencies, and I know in the government there's probably hundreds of different agencies. So what is an agency? Give me
agency would be, for example, so we all know about the Department of Defense. We know the Army, the Navy, Marines, things like that. But within the Navy has, it breaks down further. So depending upon the industry that you're in, the Navy has different, what they call agencies. So Navy has like subsectors below them. And I could show you that, that handle specific types of projects. So for me, since I do construction, that's called NAVFAC. NAVFAC, NAVFAC, handles construction. Now, if you were trying to sell intelligence or some sort of product to the Navy, NAVFAC doesn't handle that. That might be under NAVC, which handles like the underwater stuff. And then you have NAVAIR that handles the stuff that's above air. It's like planes and things like that. So it's also, if you look at, for example, all of us, a good example would be TSA. So TSA, everybody goes to the airport, so you know TSA. That's an agency. But TSA falls under Homeland Security. And then so does Customs and Border Patrol, may fall under Homeland Security. So the agencies are the specific people who are going to be like at your localized areas where you're actually at, like in your town, your city, things like that. But they fall under bigger umbrella of Army, Navy,
Right.
whatever, Marines, Coast Guard. But then at your local area, there's a specific like branch that handles those
That.
opportunities.
Okay. Yeah. I just wanted you to make the define exactly what the agencies were. So BEB family members that are interested in getting into government contracts would have a little clearer understanding of that. In terms of your actual business itself, it sounds like you've been rocking and rolling, man. And we know here at the BEB family, not all businesses go straight to the top, man. Can you share a time with us where you had a situation or failure or something that almost put you out of business? I know in your bio you talk about you went broke twice and rebounded both times using government contracts. So
Yeah.
you're a man of my own heart. I almost lost it all twice too. So we definitely connect on that. So can you share a little bit about that if you don't mind?
Yeah, certainly. When I left from my second partner and I went off on my own, I had my team of guys out there working. Um, I was doing federal contracts, but then I wanted to expand. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm the big man now. I'm killing it, and I'm doing all this stuff, and I've got cash flow coming in. I've got a team. I built up to 23 people, 5 girls
Okay.
in the office, and so we had crews working in Texas, and we had crews working in Georgia, Florida, and then Boise, Idaho, and I was
Wow.
working. So we had crews all over,
Hmm.
and I started doing private sector work. So I started
Okay.
going after private sector jobs, and that's really where things took a turn for my business. Is again, this is still, you know, uh, the collapse happened. So you're talking about 4 or 5 years after the collapse. I
Okay.
mean, there was still carnage left. I mean,
Oh,
there were
definitely.
still victims, and so
Oh,
the
yeah.
the projects that I was working on in the private sector were given to these companies during that same era, and
Hmm.
so they had to bid them really low to almost no profit because
Gotcha.
there was no other work. And so if you're $100 million company, they just took work just to keep the doors open and keep people,
Busy. Yeah.
busy.
Hmm.
So what happened was two of the projects that I worked on, the companies, their intention was to come in and try and get the money from the subcontractors. So they wanted to, and if anyone is in construction, I'm sure you're not surprised you've heard this before. Their objective was to get your bond, default the subs, and then take and make the money off your contracts. And so
Gotcha.
that's how they would profit their jobs off of us little guys.
Wow.
And they would call our bond and get the job. So I
Oh
was
my
working on a
goodness.
project in Savannah, Georgia, and it was a police cadet facility.
Hmm.
And the company, Elkins Construction, and I don't mind mentioning Elkins because I'll tell you the story in a minute.
Okay.
Um, so we were up there working on a facility, building a metal building for them, and my contract was like a half a million, so it wasn't
Okay.
terribly big. Um, and there was a lot of issues about the changing of the colors of the roof and things like that, and we had to order a new roof, and so there was a lot of things that were in the beginning phases that they didn't necessarily sign off. They changed people. This person didn't
Mhm.
approve that, and so they kept getting us stuck holding the bag.
Gotcha.
And so they eventually kicked us off the job. They brought someone else in to finish the project, and then they turned around. They owed me $280,000 on the
Wow.
job. I knew the
Dang.
company that finished it, so I know that they didn't eat up all the money, but they turned
Right.
around and sued me anyways for $1 million.
Wow.
So
Why'd they sue
I'm
for a
like,
million?
right. So
Yeah.
like my contract's 500,000. You
Right.
owe me 280, and then you sue me for $1 million. And I'm like, what is wrong with these?
How's that work?
How does
Yeah.
that work? How could I cause more damage than the value of my contract, less what you already paid? Like
Right.
it just didn't even add up. Fortunately, and I think this is a really good story for people to hear. The vice president of Elkins told me, he said, Eric, because I was already, look, you know what? I didn't hide from these guys. I would
Yeah.
go to meetings. I would go there and I said, listen, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm like,
Right.
look, I've defended listen, maybe my guys made some mistakes, but it wasn't, $1 million worth of mistakes.
Right.
You guys chose to go a different path because, and from the very beginning, I've got notes and documents. You delayed us in the beginning. Your project was
Hmm.
60 days behind schedule. So I had to change erectors to come in and try to fill the schedule. We operate on schedules.
Right.
So if you were 60 days behind, I got to send my guy somewhere else to go work.
Exactly.
So now when you decide you're ready to go, you're like, oh, you need to get out here next week. I mean,
yeah. It's
so then they start blaming, not feasible. Then you start blaming me and start talking to me with delays and making threats. So the guy said, well, why don't you call your insurance company, see if they'll pay the lawsuit. So I called my insurance company. They said, of course, they won't pay no lawsuit. Because it wasn't a lawsuit at the time. They were threatening to do it. They said, but if you get sued, if they do actually do a suit, we will cover the cost of your attorney's fees.
Gotcha.
And I was like, oh, this is sweet. So now, so when they did sue me, then that clause kicked in on my insurance policy, and the insurance company hired a lawyer to represent me and defend my case. And so what happened was, at the end of the day, I think 6 months went by. 3 months went by. My attorney would call me and say, hey, we're at a stalemate. They're still trying to say you did all these things. He goes, but don't worry. We'll just wait them out. And because, hey, the insurance is paying for it, so it didn't cost me anything at that point. So I was like, all right. So I was able to continue. Yeah, and then a few months later, I want to say 3 months, maybe 2, my attorney calls me and says, hey, we got great news. And he says, they want to settle with you. And I said, okay. He says, but I got, I said, well, what's the settlement amount? He said, $10,000.
That'll work, huh?
And I was like, okay.
Yeah, that'll work.
And so they went from $1 million
to
10,000.
10K. Wow.
And the best part was that my insurance paid the 10K. All I had to do was pay my $2,000 deductible.
Wow. Oh, that's beautiful.
So out of pocket, it was $2K. So again, if you had jumped off a building or killed, thought about suicide, like, people get under pressure and they don't know what's going to happen at the end and outcome. So, if you had, I tell people this now, like, I try to have stillness and be stoic and also say, well, let me see how this may turn out. Like, I don't know how it's going to turn out anymore. So I don't lose my cool or get upset, or I just continued on my path, and it worked out. And so what happened was the company filed bankruptcy.
Oh, wow.
And so now the company who had done $150 million the year before, who sued me, was actually going bankrupt. And my little company was still afloat.
Wow, that's crazy. You had mentioned something about being sued, and I've said this on a couple of the podcasts. If you're doing business at a certain level, being sued that's par for the course. Right. Something is going to happen. All your major companies have been sued multiple times. So it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It's just a dispute. So in terms of being sued, don't be scared. And you hit it right on the head, Eric, because it can look real ugly when you get a big stack of legal papers looking like this, and you're like, uh-oh. So, but yeah, let it play out. So if you're in the game making moves and doing big things, your company is liable to be sued. So make sure you have all your stuff in order. You also mentioned, man, that you almost went down again for the second time, man. Can you share that with us and how you came back?
Yeah, no, well, I had another. So after that, I had another company, a private company, that same thing. The project, they did a bunch of crooked stuff on that project, and so they accused me of doing it. And essentially, they outlawyered me. They had more lawyers. And so what happened was that project was closer to $800,000. And that one was tough because they didn't pay me, but I had to finish the contract to be able to recover my monies that they didn't pay. So I ended up staying to the end. I went broke. Literally, I ran out of money. I got some people to come in and finish it on the promise of them being paid on my next contract. Gotcha. So I got guys to come in and finish the project. And it was tough. I mean, on that job, Jay, I'll tell you, man, and this is something I write one of these stories, but literally I had my equipment vendors come out and put equipment on my job because I didn't have any money. After about a month and a half, they would call me. I couldn't pay the bills. They come pull equipment off. I used my other credit account for another equipment company. They'd come out on the job. They stayed for a couple months. They pull that equipment off. That happened to me 3 times in that job. Wow. And then the 4th time, I ran out of vendors. So I had a company a friend of mine's company that owed me money on a contract that they didn't pay me, like 14
Mm.
grand. So I called their equipment company vendor and put them on the job.
There you go.
And then and I ended up finishing the job with their vendor, and the bills went back up to them.
Okay.
But I figured, hey, look, these guys owed me money. They ain't paid me. They
Right.
weren't trying to pay me. I'm like, all
I
right, let
got
me
you.
call. I got you. So let me call. And I mean, it was to that point,
Right.
and I remember the day that, like I said in one of my articles, I almost took a gun to work because I didn't have the money to pay my employees,
Yeah.
and I knew these guys would be coming in looking for their paychecks, and I just didn't have any way of paying them. I had no money to pay them,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, when I was talking through it with my mom and my family, they actually stepped up and lent me $5,000
Oh,
to
that's what's
to
up.
pay. And by the way, that didn't cover my payroll. That covered what I did was I stopped paying the government. So I stopped paying the matching piece. So
Mm-hmm.
I did internally. Internally I had the girls in the office figure out what was the balance that they received after we took out their portion of taxes,
Right.
and I was only able to cover that piece.
Got you. I hope.
So
I hope you. I hope you covered it back. Now I don't want to air this, man. And the feds come looking
oh
for
no
it.
no no! Listen, I've paid all my stuff to come forward. But yeah, so in that situation, that company essentially at the end of the day, I had a bond on the project.
Mhm.
They threatened to sue me. The bonding company told me to settle. I ended up settling with them, and that really hurt me um, because I had a bond. My bonding company did not give me the option to use the insurance trick that I used before to
Right.
get the attorney's fees. And the bonding company said, "Hey, if you don't have $100,000 to cover," because they sued me out of Georgia, the project was in
Okay.
Florida, so that way you had to have two attorneys to represent
Wow.
you. And
Right.
then because I had a bond, I'd have four attorneys because I had two for me and two for my bonding company to
Oh
defend these
man,
guys. So
that's
as you
crazy.
can imagine, they put me in a no-win situation.
Right.
And that they essentially, I had to settle with them because the bonding company said, if you don't settle, I'll settle, and it'd be for way more than you would ever do.
Right.
So I ended up at the end of the day owing $200,000.
Okay.
So I went from having plus 250 in my account to owing 220. So it's like a $500,000 swing.
Wow.
I ended up getting a job at Miami-Dade County and doing Uber on the side for about
Mm.
6 months.
So you made that
Until
comeback.
until I made a comeback.
There
Yeah.
you go. That's what's up.
Yeah. But I will say this. One of the suppliers that I owed money to was the one who put that shining light in me. And he's called me. He said, Eric, I told him the story. I owed him like 30 grand. And he said,
Mhm.
look, I'm sorry that happened to you. It happened to me. And he said he had a construction company. It happened to him. And he said to me, Eric, where were you successful at when you first got started? And I told him federal contracts. He says, go back to that.
Mhm. And that's what.
And so when I was working at Miami-Dade County for those few months, I knew that it was going to be one contract to get me out of the hole. And within about 6 months, I got my first contract. And
That's
that
what's up.
basically, that was about a $500,000 contract. I parlayed that one into the big one that I told you about, the $5 million one. And I
Mhm.
walked away from Miami-Dade County, and I never looked back.
That's what's up. How long ago was that, man? When you walked away?
It was actually, so that was around 2016.
Okay. Cool.
So it was a few years back. I mean, literally, when I won the second contract, the one that was a $500,000, and I
Mhm.
knew that I had all this free time on my hands,
Right.
I said to myself that I could continue down this path, or I could do
Mhm.
something to help change the direction for other people. And
Right.
so I wanted to start sharing my knowledge, my wisdom, and that's when I launched my YouTube channel in
Channel.
2017.
Yeah.
So I was still being paid from that contract,
Right.
the residual income from that, up until last year.
Oh, that's what's up.
Yeah.
So I want the light bulb to go off to the BEB family. So brother Eric had gone through a couple of tough times there, but the whole key is he didn't quit. So it's only over once you quit, family. So you got to keep pushing forward. And when we talked, when we first connected a couple of months ago, we were sharing these stories with each other. And it's funny, once you talk to like seasoned entrepreneurs, you'll see that there's a lot of commonality in this type of thing. Because once again, business doesn't just go straight up. You're going to have your twists, turns, and you're going to have your obstacles, but you have to stay diligent to be able to push through that. And now, he's sitting over there and doing his, man, what you sitting on, about 100 million now? You and Jay-Z? Nah,
I
let me
can tell you.
stop.
Let me tell you. It's funny that you said that. We're actually so now I'm looking. We're launching a venture capital company where we're trying to raise 100 million.
That's what's up. There you
So
go.
you're joking, but you're not far off.
Up,
We are,
up.
yeah, we
That's
are
great.
looking at a venture capital company, and we are now, because of the YouTube channel, because of the network and the community. I have such a, like, man, my network is insane.
Mm-hmm.
We have people coming to us with opportunities that they want to sell to the government.
Right.
And I've had students of mine introduce me to venture capitalist companies in an
Mm-hmm.
efforts to help us launch our own VC firm. And so we are in the process of trying to raise $100 million.
That's what's up. Now, I want you to give your YouTube channel and your website information. And before you do that, I just want to say, so BEB family, if you look where Eric was in 2016, right? We're closing out 2019. Look at the growth coming back from that last setback where he is right now. So that's a testament to, it's intestinal fortitude. It's believing in yourself and believing in your vision. So even if things like this happen, you can still make a comeback, and you're coming back in a big way, brother. What's your YouTube information? And I also know that you have a book coming out, and you're going to do a little something for the BEB family when your book comes out. But tell us your YouTube channel
Yeah,
and your
I mean, my
contact.
YouTube, again, if you Google my name, Eric, ERIC, Coffee, COFFIE, you'll find me everywhere on YouTube. GovConGiants.com, that's my platform. And so if you type in GovCon Giants, that's the place to start. That has all my information on it, blog, articles, things like that as well.
So
But
that,
I will say, Jay, I do have a podcast where we interview successful entrepreneurs such as myself, but
mhm,
I go out and find the biggest, the brightest, the best people that are doing government contracts, so that
mhm,
you can hear stories from people in different type of industries, not just mine. I'm in construction, but you've got people in there. Just last week, we interviewed the small business representative for Collins Aerospace. They were our United Technologies company. They
mhm.
are the largest maker of parts for the defense and aerospace industry in the world. And I
Wow.
had her on my show talking about how you can do business with her particular organization. And so definitely, if you want to hear more stories like mine, the GovCon Giants podcast is the place to go. Yeah, Jay, I'm working on a new book, and
Okay.
actually, this is the first place that I've announced it publicly. That I'm working on a new book.
Breaking news, family. Breaking news.
So so no one knows about this. I haven't even announced it on my own YouTube channel yet, Jay.
All
So
right.
this is the first. But yeah, I'm launching a new book. It's going to be called the GovCon Launch Book, where we teach you how to launch a government contracting business, take you from start to finish. I'm going to share some case studies, stories of some of my students. You've heard my story, but I want to share some of the stories of students of mine who have started within the last months, and they're breaking into this industry. When you hear government contracts and you hear starting a business, I know it seems daunting, but some of the things that we do and we tell people, I have a really unique way, a method that I teach that I think that I have not seen anyone else teach anywhere. Like, I mean, I haven't seen it, and I've read a lot of books on government contracting. And the
Mhm.
same way that I, like, when you asked me, Jay, how did I get started? I started off as a consultant, as a business developer, working with a firm that was much bigger than mine, that already had the structure, the organization, the capital, the finance, everything in place. And so I was able to parlay that, save enough money to then launch my own business. And so that's the strategy that I teach to people that want to get started, that may not have capital, may not have any knowledge, may not have any money, may not have the team, and they want to get into this space. I teach people how to link up with companies that are already doing, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, $8 million in business. And you learn how to do the government contracting from me. Go out and connect with a company that's
Mhm.
already has scale, that is not doing government contracts, and then you bring them into the space. And that is something that I found has been extremely successful for all of my students out there, is essentially connecting with a larger firm and then agreeing to get a percent of the sales. And then now you have the ability to go after 500,000, million, $2 million contracts,
Mhm. And learn
and
the business in the
and learn the
process.
business in the process.
Process,
Yeah,
right? Without all the risk.
yeah.
So that's govcongiants.com. And also for the BEB family, when Eric's book, you can do a pre-launch and order his book, govcongiants.com, and that's /BEB, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're gonna do something special for you guys over at, just visit us over at govcongiants.com, GOVCON Giants, GIANTS.com /BEB. And so what we're gonna do for you guys special, I will do a pre-launch. Everyone that signs up there, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the book for free. Plus, you just pay the cost of the shipping, and we'll send
Cool.
that out for free. It's gonna be it's gonna be big. I mean, I'm not holding back anything. Even recently, the government has changed their new systems that they're using. They've changed the ways that they are buying technology products. So if you are a person who has a technology or a product or a service that you want to introduce to the government, we're going to talk about that in the book. If
Cool.
you are a veteran, and so we've got a lot of veterans out there, Jay. Listen, we're going to talk about how you can get the VA and their benefits to pay you back to actually learn this coursework. So
Wow.
the Veteran Administration actually will pay veterans, Jay, to take coursework like mine and like yours to better themselves. And so
Wow.
we talk about that in the book as well. We're going to talk about supplier credit. Like I said, how do you get supplier credit? How do you get access to base? So we're covering the whole gamut to take someone and from no knowledge to actually being able to not just start the business, but grow the business successfully.
That's what's up. Yeah, and I like that concept as I just touched on, man. So you're teaching people not to go in and leverage everything they have, but learn the business first, get your feet wet, and then eventually break out on your own if that's what you want to do. But I know you probably have consultants that are making a ton of money right now and may
Yeah.
not even want to venture out.
No, and again, that's what I have people. Exactly what you said, Jay. So right now, I have students that are consultants, and they don't want to start a business. Like they don't want to run a business. They don't want to deal with it. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, listen, right? Even myself, I don't want the headache and hassle of having to deal with HR issues and having to deal with an administrative staff and team. And it's a lot to deal with. And we're not all necessarily cut out to be business owners, but you can
Right.
still make the same monies, right, without having the hassle and the headache of running a business. So yes, I have students now. One of my students just last week won $1 million contract, and again, this guy was debating between going back to college.
Right.
And he said, Eric, if this, and so now, he just won his first contract that was $1 million, because he was working with a company that had the past performance, that had the experience, and so all he had to do now is take them to the agencies, right, and then introduce them. Make his pitch and say, hey, this is what we have and this is what we want to do, and then put it together. And so he was able to get a piece of $1 million contract. And that's way better than doing a $50,000 contract and you having to figure out where to get the money from, where you're going to buy the stuff from, how you're going to pay, like you just said, how you're going to pay the employees.
Exactly.
How you're going to pay back the loan, how are you going to turn in the reports to be compliant. All you got to do in this scenario is match them up with the contract. They'll do the work, the heavy lifting, and then you get a check.
What's the normal for the consultant? What's the normal fee that the consultant would charge the company?
What we teach is 5.5% of the revenue, the sale, or 25% of the profit.
Okay, cool. So on that deal right there, that was what, 50 grand, 55 grand, whatever? Or $1 million?
Yeah. Like 50 grand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. And without all the headache.
Without all the headache.
Do a couple of those a year. So definitely, guys, govcongiants.com. And for the free book, govcongiants.com /BEB. We definitely appreciate you hooking up the BEB family, breaking that news with your new book coming out, man. So
no, man. No, actually, it's again, with all the stuff that I got going on, it's difficult to do it. But I knew from the my first book, $1 Billion Playbook, is essentially a list of websites, free websites that you can use to grow your government contracting business. But I knew that people wanted a step-by-step publication
Actionable
that
step.
actual steps that took them through it. And again, most of the books that I've read out there talk to you about technical law and technical procedures,
Right.
and and nothing tells you how to actually get a contract.
To do what, yeah, do
Like, how
what
do
you
you,
want to do.
and
Right.
that's what I think is missing, is people want to know, like, how do I actually win a contract? And that's what we're going to do differently, is tell people actually how to go out and win contracts, what to say, who you should be talking to, and things like that.
Oh man, that's great. We're not going to hold you too much longer, man. I just have about 2 questions for you. Um, where do you see your business and yourself in 5 years right now? I know you got a lot going on, a lot of moving pieces.
Well, Jay, man, we are. I mean, this thing is going fast. So I can tell you this: we have a course out, and we see taking our course and building it to a full blown platform
Hmm.
where we not only, because one of the things that we're finding out now is business owners are coming to me to look for people to do business development, to do consulting work for them.
Hmm.
So, like SpaceX, I don't know if you guys know
Yeah.
SpaceX or Tesla. So,
Hmm.
SpaceX, when they were trying, their rockets weren't working and they were losing money, they hired a consultant to bring them into the government space so they can get a government contract. And
Contract.
that's what basically took them from the red to the black on their
Black.
business. And so people are coming to me asking for consultants. So one of the things, what I see in the future is essentially, we are already the largest YouTube channel on the planet for teaching this,
Hmm.
but I want to be the largest in every category. So we see building a national network of businesses that need assistance, of students that want to work with businesses,
Hmm.
of we want to capture all of the information and past data that the government has on history of contracts so that we can put that all into a database and be able to do analytics on it, do AI. And then
Hmm.
what we see is happening is we're going to be eventually, let's say, like if you were to come on to Facebook or LinkedIn and they make friend suggestions, if you to
Hmm.
come onto our platform, we're going to make suggestions for people who you need to network in that industry related to government contracts. So
That's
people that
sweet.
may be in your same space, people that may be um, doing what you do in terms of, let's say, they're in your region, or if you want to work
Hmm.
with the Navy, they're former Navy people, things like that. So we see this as being a full-fledged platform like a Facebook or a LinkedIn for government contracts. That's where I'm headed.
That's what's up. It's like a dual-sided marketplace. You have the actual the contracts, and then you have you're bringing people together and matching them
Correct.
up,
Yeah,
which is
matching
cool.
them up. Right.
Yep, that
Right.
makes a lot of
Which,
sense.
by the way, the government has tried and failed at doing that. But again, they're not really good at developing these types of programs. So um, we're doing it from a practical standpoint, from actual like applicable, like how to, because again, they're talking about the rules and the nuances of how the rules work and things like that, and we're talking about, again, taking steps towards actually, what things that you should be doing and the steps you should be taking and following to get results.
Cool. And before I ask this last question, I forgot to bring this up. Um, Before we started recording, you had shown me an email, and most people think that all you have to always bid for government contracts. But can you explain to me prior to the recording that sometimes the government will reach out to you if you position yourself correctly for bids that aren't even out there live yet? So can you just talk about that real quick
Yeah,
before?
yeah, definitely. No, so the majority of my contracts are actually negotiated contracts. If you are in one of the socioeconomic categories, which is woman-owned, veteran-owned, hub zone, or 8A, then the government can do direct negotiations with you. It's also called sole source contracts that are non-competition, non-compete. So you are not competing against anyone for these particular contracts. And so what I showed you before before the call, was an email that I received for where the government agency had sent me an email to give them a price for a project that was not publicly posted anywhere. And so that's what I teach my students is how do you position yourselves to where you are actually negotiating direct contracts with the government. One of my students right now is headed over to the Coast Guard base, and where she's giving them a price on a job that they didn't post publicly as well.
That's what's up. So we're talking about somebody that's doing the business, not just teaching the business, guys.
Oh yeah.
And so that's a big difference. So you're going to find a lot of information out there, but it's always best to get it from somebody that's in the business and making money in the business which he's teaching. So definitely make sure you guys check out govcongiants.com/BEB for the book. Before we also close out, one more question, man, then we're going to let you give all your contact info. If you had the opportunity to talk to one person, living or dead, who would it be and why? We want to see inside Eric Coffie, see what he's thinking in there.
If I talk to living or dead and
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
That's very interesting. You know, that's a good
On the
question.
clock now, man. It's ticking.
It's ticking. That's interesting. I guess for me, if I had a person, I'm not into dead people.
Right.
So I mean, if I had a chance to talk to someone, I would want to talk to, let's say like a Jay-Z for me
Okay.
personally, because Jay-Z has interacted with Warren Buffett.
Mm-hmm.
He's interacted with people in the entertainment industry. And for me, and now they're getting into investing.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me personally, that's the way I see myself and my friends, like I told you, is that we were all, when I listen back to the old hip hop songs, right, they talk about riding bicycles and being in raggedy cars, right? And, the dog, I mean, again, I listen to these guys. And so if you look at Jay-Z and Dre and P. Diddy and these guys, right, and they all came up together in that era. And I remember hearing an interview by even one of the Wayans brothers' kids who said we were the first like wealthy black kids of our generation. Because again, if you go back, Jay, history, black people didn't have wealth back, back in the 60s and stuff. So these were we're still living in an era where these are the first generation of like really wealthy, black kids. And so for me, I feel like I'm in the same position as where these guys were maybe 15 years ago. Right. Where my friends and we started this government contracting the same way these guys started. Like I remember my friends having, raggedy cars, and I had a, okay car. And so I remember them living in regular houses. And then I remember everyone also elevating themselves, right, to better cars. And so, now, if I go to my friend in Miami, and we go out, we're riding a Lamborghini. And so it's just, I see that transition. But for me, I don't do that because I'm more of a low key kind of guy. Right. And, I'm not, but it's just, I would love to find out from them, okay, how, talk about that experience, because that's where I see myself going. And one of the things that kept me out of trouble was, if you listen to my story, I always had older mentors that were more successful. Every path, that I've taken, and every turn, it's always been someone older than me, wiser, that kind of led me. So I would, even though I know where I'm going, I don't know what challenges are going to be in my way, what obstacles are going to be in my way. And what to expect. So someone like that can tell me kind of what to expect, because I know that, there's like I say, there's a jungle out here, man. There's snakes and lions and tigers and bears. Like, I don't know what's going to be coming at me when I embark on this new adventure. And so, obviously I'm concerned, and it would be great to hear from someone, hey, look, because again, we're talking about raising $100 million.
Exactly.
There's gonna be people. I'm gonna have a target on my back.
Definitely.
And so, I would love to talk to them to find out how did they make that transition, and who did they speak to, who did they talk to, right? How did they make that adjustment, and what kind of things that, like kind of pitfalls I can avoid, right, in my journey.
That's a great answer, man. It's when my kids were younger, and when they were starting to go out on their own and all types of stuff, they want to do certain things that I know probably wouldn't lead to good endings, right? They're always like, Dad, why? How do you know? I said, look, see that door right there? So I was pointing to like the door in the pantry, and they're like, yeah, Dad. And I said, what do you see? He's like, I see a door. And I said, yeah, but I see through the door. I said, that's my experience. So everything you're talking about, I've been there, done that. So you're looking at this, but I'm looking through it because I know certain actions are going to result in certain results and stuff like that. But you're right. Mentorship, talking to your elders or people with more experience and things that are 5 steps ahead, 10, 20, 50 steps ahead. I always say that we could all be mentors in some form or fashion. So all you have to do is know more about something than somebody else. and you can be a mentor,
Right.
and
No,
experience.
sure, sure.
Yeah. And so that's
Sure.
big. So I'm big on mentorship and being able to, help those that are coming behind us. Brother, I appreciate your time, Eric. Before you close out, man, just give your contact information again with your website and all that good old stuff, man. We're going to close out.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, all of my contact, everything is on govcongiants.com. And so you can find me there. Really, that's the best place to find me. YouTube channel, Eric Coffie, GovCon Giants, Score Contracts. Again, if you just type in my name in Google, you'll find me. I'm all over the web. I've got a lot of content on there. I have a lot of free content. I've got, the free course, www.freegovconcourse.com. And again, so I have a lot of content that's already on the web. Learn it, absorb it, before you decide, which way you want to go. I don't recommend you go out there and hire a consultant or someone that you think to teach you, because you don't know how to judge a good consultant. You don't know how to judge a good person who's going to look out for your interests. And so a lot of times people are being taken advantage of by people that are so-called consultants. And that's why before we started, I showed Jay an email that I received yesterday for a contract opportunity that was given to me. Because I want you guys to know, I want people to know that, like you said, I walk the walk. I ain't just talking the talk. I mean, I'm actually out here walking it and doing these things, which helps keep me abreast on what's the changes that are happening as they are happening, the rules, the regulations, and things like that. So, yeah, like I said, Eric, ERIC, Coffie, COFFIE. And you can contact me through any one of the channels and the websites there. There's always a help desk or email that you could put in the computer, and they'll send it to someone on my team.
Cool. My brother, I appreciate you, man. This is a great episode because as I said earlier, a lot of people have been reaching out to me about government contracting. There's no better way to get information than somebody that's in there making money and doing it in the business that they're talking about. So
no, we're killing
appreciate you, bro. Hey, man, when you anything you got coming up, man, just let me know. We'll definitely get you back on the show. Don't forget BEB family, govcongiants.com/BEB. Get your free book, Eric's new book. Just pay the shipping and handling. And I'm sure it's going to be a dynamite book, man. I can't wait to get my copy, man. Can I get a signed copy, bro?
Yes, sir. You can get a signed copy. No, I get you a signed copy. I get you a signed copy. All right.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man, and the BEB family. Hey, guys, look, I wish you guys the best. Like I said, I've seen more millionaires created in this industry than any other industry, personally.
That's what's up. All right, brother. We'll be in touch, man.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you.
Peace.
Thanks, guys.
All right, family. That was an amazing interview with Mr. Eric Coffie, founder of GovConGiants.com. Now, I just want to give a few takeaways that I got from the interview. But before I do that, I want to make sure that you go to govcongiants.com/BEB for the gift. And that is Eric's new book, govcongiants.com/BEB for Eric's new book. Now, one of the biggest takeaways I got was a lot of people always talk about business credit. And Eric mentioned something that was very important. He didn't get a line of credit for the business. He got a line of credit from his suppliers. Okay. And he said a truism. Banks only give people money who don't need money. All right. That's a truism. So if you tick off all the boxes, the banks are going to give you money. Most small businesses and entrepreneurs, when they start out, they're not going to check all those boxes. So I'm not telling you don't go look for financing or lines of credit. But as Eric mentioned, maybe you can go and get supplier lines of credit. Now, as he mentioned in the episode, he talked about who do you do business with? These suppliers want references. So anybody you've done business with, even if it's going to Staples and buying supplies for your business. So that was something that was really highlighted. Another thing that really stuck out to me was Eric's ability to get back up every time he got knocked down. And so if you have that within you as an entrepreneur, nothing can stop you as long as you're on the right path and the right plan. So once again, people think you go into entrepreneurship and you go from 0 to 100 like that, but it doesn't work like that. You've heard my stories and you've heard the stories of other entrepreneurs on the show. So you have to be prepared for setbacks. But once again, like my dad always said, winners win. And it's a simple, phrase. 2 words, winners win. And I asked him what it meant. And he said, basically, winners are going to do whatever is necessary to win. So if you have to go up over, around, under, through, or whatever, winners find a way to do that. And to be a successful entrepreneur, you definitely need to have that skill with you. So also make sure that you check out all of Eric's resources. They're going to be links on the video below if you're watching this on YouTube, and also my resource links. Now, if you need to connect with me, you can go to bebconnect.com. Everything I'm about to tell you is going to be on that page. That's a page on my website. Go to bebconnect.com and you will see all my resources. But I do want to share them with you first and foremost. So my new book is out, A New Black Wall Street, Circulating the Black Dollar Worldwide by Building Successful E-Commerce Businesses. You know, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint is all about the economic empowerment of the Black community. So this book talks about how you can actually create e-commerce businesses and support other Black businesses. So it's the new Black Wall Street, new technology, new day, new age, new time. So we need to leverage the technology. Now, if you need additional assistance building your successful, sustainable e-commerce business, I've created a compatible online course titled educatedecommerce.com. Just go to educatedecommerce.com and enroll in the course. Now, on the outset of the show, I mentioned to you 2 platforms that I've created to help facilitate, the movement of the Black dollar in the Black community, the circulation. So if you are a Black product producer, you can go to besmartbyblack.com, besmartbyblack.com. You can upload your product information on the platform. It is free, and you can connect with Black consumers worldwide. Now, if you're a freelancer, if you do anything like on Fiverr or Freelancer, I haven't forgotten about you guys. So I've created a platform titled hireblackfreelancers.com. Once again, put your information on there. It is free. So you can connect with Black consumers and Black businesses that are looking to hire Black freelancers. Also, if you want me to come out to speak to your church, university, organization, or for my book talk, you can go to bookjjones.com, fill out the short form, and I'll get right back to you. Once again, BEB Connect has all of this information. Now, I invite you guys to also hook up with me on social media. So let me give you all of my social media contact information. If it's anything long, family, I get DMs that are like long like crazy. If it's anything long, just hit me on my email. It's jjones@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. JAYJONES@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Facebook, just go to Facebook, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, connect with me there. Twitter, jjones001, JAYJONES001. Instagram, jjones for real, JAYJONES, the number 4 REAL. YouTube, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have additional content on YouTube that is not on the podcast. So go to YouTube, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, and hit the subscribe button. Also, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just go to LinkedIn, search for J Jones, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. And if you want to be included in the BEB text line for notifications and special reminders, I'm not going to bug the bejesus out of you, but this is only for special things. Text BEB to 555-888. BEB to 555-888. Once again, family, everything is under BEB Connect. Everything I just read out to you and told you, just go to BEB Connect and link up with me. Hey, and I always say this before the end of every show. Each and every show, family, we get more and more downloads, and that's because of you, the BEB family. So I appreciate you guys. Please continue to spread the word via social media, word of mouth, smoke signals, whatever you got to do. But I love you guys, and I'll see you same time next week. Peace.